Will NXT win Survivor Series? Welcome everyone to your Enhancement Talent review for WWE Monday Night Raw 11/18/2019. Starting off with the discussion point here with the main event of this show being the Go Home to Survivor Series. And how does every Go Home to every Survivor Series ever end? With a big-ass brawl. So, earlier in the night, as for whatever reason, it was announced beforehand for this Raw that it would be the Viking Raiders defending the Raw Tag Team Championships against Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. Why? I don't know. But needless to say that AOP jumped Hawkins and Ryder, so they were unable to perform. Now, you may have thought that logically that would lead to AOP versus the Viking Raiders, but that was not where the direction went. Instead, Randy Orton decided to step up to the challenge, and he said with a partner of his choice, he would take on the Viking Raiders, and I think it was for the titles, but I don't even remember at this point. But it was Randy Orton and Question Mark versus Viking Raiders in the main event. The question mark, to really no surprise, at least to me, was Ricochet, with the storyline that he and Randy have had over the past couple weeks. And so this main event match, it goes about 10 minutes, and then it is interrupted, which was an ongoing theme of Raw this week, which we'll get to those other ones in a bit. But big brawl, SmackDown invades, but then NXT invades, and NXT has the numbers advantage as they have like everyone there, and they take over, if you will. And everyone just big ass brawl. The show ends with Triple H in Gorilla cutting a promo saying that on Wednesday he's leaving the doors wide open for anyone from Raw or SmackDown. So, overall, I still don't really care for it. I don't get why the guys that have nothing to do with the Survivor Series matches have anything to do with the build to Survivor Series. It's the cookie-cutter Survivor Series build, is that everyone is showing brand loyalty, even the guys that aren't even on the show, to assist in these brawls. We've seen it a million times at this point. So I won't really get too much into that, but I will discuss here that NXT really needs a few wins in this Survivor Series. I would say that they should win the majority of the matches. And I think that they definitely should win the main thing, the 5-on-5-on-5 match. I think they definitely should win that, and I think they should have some more wins throughout the show, and I think they should really have the most wins throughout, because they are the ones that really need it, with them on USA and in the ratings war with AEW. Trying to make NXT seem like as big a deal as possible, I think, is imperative for this Survivor Series. So I think they have to do something big for NXT. And I don't even know if just winning matches will be enough to do that, but I think they need to do something that shows that they belong there. I think something that would help them is if someone like Kevin Owens or Seth Rollins went back to NXT, as we'll talk about that later in the show with the Kevin Owens stuff. A possibility like that, I think, really could help NXT leaps and bounds. But other than that, that was the main event. It was just what you would expect out of the closing of Survivor Series. So with that in mind, we will go back to the top of the program, which started with Becky Lynch, which I feel like Becky has opened the last 3 Raws that I've watched. Becky Lynch opens with a promo, challenges Bayley and Shayna. That's something. Bayley and Shayna to come out and just fight now instead of waiting for Survivor Series. But instead, she is greeted with the Iconics. As I guess apparently there was supposed to be a tag match between the Iconics and Becky and Charlotte. So, Becky says she knows she's supposed to be tagging with Charlotte tonight, but challenges the Iconics 2-on-1. And Charlotte comes out, of course she does, says she doesn't want to tag with Becky either, but the powers that be want it to happen. I don't know what powers that she's referring to, because last I checked, there were no authority figures. I thought we were the authority. Like, I don't remember asking for Charlotte to be in this match. Maybe she's talking about USA or something. Maybe USA wants them to tag together. Just to prolong the inevitable Charlotte versus Becky match for the title that we will get once again for, like, the millionth time at some point down the road. Not that that's even a bad thing. Like, Charlotte and Becky do a lot of good stuff together. Their last man standing match that they had at Evolution was, in my opinion, probably the best main roster women's match ever. Off the top of my head, I think that one is at the top of the list. But it's just the law of diminishing returns, I guess. We've seen them all throughout the last year go at each other, so it's inevitable that we get there once again. But after this came another ongoing theme of this Raw, and that theme was untimely commercial breaks. So as all of this is happening, and Charlotte comes down, she's interrupted by Samoa Joe's music. And Joe's been out with an injury for a while, so Joe comes out in a suit and tie. I thought he was going to announce himself as the GM of Raw, but then it went to commercial. And then it came back, and the match was starting, but Samoa Joe was on commentary, which he is filling the place of Dio Madden, who has not been back on the commentary set since Brock Lesnar put him through the announce table. I don't know if they're just really milking this injury angle or if they wanted a reason to get Dio Madden off of commentary. Don't know. I like Dio. I think he's really grown into the role here, but who knows? Hopefully we'll see him back at some point, because I think he's been overall pretty good. And really, overall, like the trio of Lawler, Madden, and Vic Joseph, I thought they were really getting better. Lawler particularly, I think, has gotten better since the first week. Now that, he's actually forced to watch the show. Now that he's gotten the hang of things. I think he's a lot more into it than he was in the first week. So, overall, I don't think commentary has been that bad. So, this match, Iconics versus Charlotte and Becky, goes a couple minutes. I don't think Becky even was in the match once, unless I forgot about it, but Charlotte gets worked over, but then doesn't ever make a hot tag. Instead, she just makes her own comeback and taps out Billie Kay with the figure 8. That, of course, leads to Shayna Baszler with her cronies, Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir, running in to take out Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, because Charlotte and Becky were already walking, migrating, flocking to the backstage area when this happened. So Charlotte and Becky see this happen. They turn back and they run in the ring. The numbers game gets the best of them, as it's 3-on-2. And the heels lay out Charlotte and Becky. But they just knock them down and then leave. They have them in a prone position, but they don't do anything with it. They just leave for no reason. No one else ran in to chase them off. They just left. I don't understand what sense that made, what the point of doing this was if you weren't going to make the most of it. But Charlotte and Becky then run after them through the crowd, but they are cut off by security, and security separates them, which helps the 3 of the 4 horsewomen of MMA to make their escape. And just for some added decoration, Becky decides to deck one of these security guards in the face. And they come back from commercial and they show a slow motion replay of this. and it was a beautiful looking punch. Just looked great. And I don't know if it looked great because it hurt like hell or if it was just that good of a working punch. But it's funny that you have Jerry Lawler on commentary for this too, because according to Lawler himself at one point, I remember, Becky had asked Jerry for advice on giving a good punch. And, you know, anybody that's followed Jerry Lawler at any point in his wrestling career knows not only overall what a great performer Lawler was, but one of the things that he was known for, one of the best working punches that has ever been seen in the wrestling business. Just textbook. It always looked good. And really everything Lawler did looked good, especially like the selling, everything he did was good. It's easy to forget that now when Lawler is just the goofy guy on commentary. But, like, Lawler all around is one of the greatest wrestlers ever, really. So, I found it funny knowing that story that we got to see firsthand Becky's punch with Lawler on commentary. After that was when Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins got attacked by AOP. Already mentioned all the stuff that in the main event and whatnot. The one thing I do think about, though, is, like, if Samoa Joe is going to be out for a while, I could seriously envision him as a manager for AOP, and it would be the most kick-ass tag team ever. Because Samoa Joe, as we all know, is a great talker. But the problem with Samoa Joe is that he always cuts these great promos. They're scathing, they're ruthless, but then he gets in the world title match, he always loses. So, if you get Samoa Joe to just be able to talk that talk, but AOP is the ones that do the action, and they deliver, I think that would be kick-ass. After this, we have Humberto Carrillo versus Karl Abs Anderson of the OC. Carrillo rolls early, going through all of his stuff, the dives and all that. He goes for all the springboards and all that stuff. But he goes for a moonsault on Anderson, but Gallows from the outside pulls him out of the ring. So, with that, the Street Profits music hit, and they come out to even the odds for Humberto. And I don't know why they weren't there from the beginning, but the distraction lets Carrillo do a dive to take out all three and go into the commercial. And going into the finish, it comes with Carrillo going for a moonsault after being worked over for a while. But AJ and Gallows both get on the apron, separate sides of each other. The ref turns his back to Gallows to get AJ off the apron, so Gallows hangs up Carrillo on the ropes, leads to an inside cradle by Anderson. But with the ref's back turn, Montez Ford pushes the pin, the inside cradle roll-up, into Carrillo's favor. So Carrillo goes from being pinned to pinning Karl Anderson. Ref comes back in to count the pin. 1, 2, 3. Humberto Carrillo gets the big win. And overall, I really like this. Carrillo gets a win, which is something he needed. It sets up what they did later in the night, which was announcing Humberto Carrillo versus AJ Styles for the United States Championship. The heels get outsmarted. They get the egg on their face, which I don't feel like happens enough. And AJ did a great job just kicking the bottom turnbuckle a few times in frustration. My only nitpick is that I really don't like the whole push the pin thing. Like it's become a new thing recently that I hadn't really seen before, but it's been used a few times now lately, is just the push the inside cradle so that the person on the bottom goes on top. I just don't really buy it, especially when it's being held in for that long. Just don't really buy it. But overall, I thought this segment in the match did a lot of good stuff. And Carrillo, for as impressive as he has been with the matches with Rollins and AJ and the 6-man tags, he hasn't gotten any big wins. And so this isn't a big win, but it's a win that builds momentum. He pinned AJ last week in the 6-man tag, even though Randy Orton did all the work, but we'll ignore that. And now he gets another match with AJ Styles, which is number 3 one-on-one, and I think like number 5 in the last couple month and a half or so overall, if you include the tag matches. So, if you ask me, Humberto's got to win next week. I don't see why else they would book this match if Humberto wasn't going to win. Because AJ's already beaten him twice. He's removed all doubt that he beats Carrillo every time. So the only reason I would think that they would make a third match is for Carrillo to get the win. Because otherwise you'd let them go their separate ways, right? Yeah, I mean, we don't want AJ to beat him 3 times in a row. So either Carrillo wins or there's going to be some sort of non-finish, which isn't a far cry from reality for these Raw shows to not have finishes to matches. We'll get to that. A match that did have a finish, though, was Bobby Lashley versus No Way Jose. And it looked like No Way Jose didn't have his Congo line with him. That's unfortunate. But Lana cuts a promo beforehand saying that she filed for divorce from her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, Rusev, and now has a temporary restraining order against Rusev, as filed by the state of Massachusetts, that he can't be within 90 feet of her. Now, I wonder if the plot hole for this is going to be that the restraining order is only valid in Massachusetts, where Raw was that night. Maybe next week, when Raw is in wherever the fuck Raw is next week, Rusev can say that we're not in the states that the restraining order was mandated, so it is null and void. I don't know. Who cares? I'm sure there's plenty of plot holes you can pick apart with this restraining order, but you know, I'm not into all that, so we're just gonna leave it alone. We're just gonna let WWE live in their world where they can do whatever they want. But Lashley squashes No Way Jose, of course, beats him with a full Nelson, or as I wrote, a master lock. And you know, at least the good thing about this match was that I really like Lashley using that as a finish. And I don't think he can end every match like that, but I think it's a good thing to have, and especially for someone built like Lashley, that's a believable move to have. If we even go back in time to the Master Lock with Chris Masters, I don't know how many people will remember this, but they built it up for like years, I think, that nobody had ever broken out of the Master Lock from Chris Masters. And they would do the Master Lock Challenge, where Masters would put someone in the Master Lock as they're sitting in a chair, and they would have to try to break it, but no one could. Until Bobby Lashley, that is, who broke it with ease. And that was probably in 2007 when they were really into pushing Bobby Lashley, back in those days. So, it's come full circle. We have Andrade versus Seth Rollins for the captainship of the Survivor Series team. And contrary to what would probably make sense, Andrade is not a part of the Survivor Series team at all. So if Rollins lost, he not only would lose the captainship, he would lose his spot on the team. So I guess this was set up on Twitter or something, but there was some sort of build to it. But these two work really well together. No surprise, because they're both awesome at this wrestling thing. Vega gets ejected early as she tries to do her Hurricane Run off the apron, but Seth catches her, throws her to the ground, and then the referee tosses Zelina Vega. The two do a lot of really cool back and forth stuff, strikes, the Andrade's elbow thing, the transition into the buckle bomb that Seth did. Great action all throughout. But then, what is the finish? For whatever reason, Lucha House Party, wearing SmackDown t-shirts, push Rollins off of the turnbuckle for the disqualification. And now, I haven't watched SmackDown in 2 weeks now, I think. But something tells me the Lucha House Party probably isn't very prominent in SmackDown's build to this Survivor Series match. I don't know what the hell they are doing out there. It goes back to the whole thing I said earlier. I don't get the allegiances to a brand with the guys that have nothing to do with the actual show. So, to me, that just makes no sense. But, of course, another non-finish, and this would be the first of a few. And it's better than the alternative, which was Rollins beating Andrade clean, because they've been building up Andrade more, and they let the thing after the match be that after the Lucha House Party, they go after Seth, then they go in the ring and work on Andrade, but Seth and Andrade, they come together, they clear the ring, and Seth shows respect for Andrade and says, we'll do this again sometime. So, I do think that put over on Andrade in a way, just that respect that Rollins gave him. But it's still another match that just has a shit finish. We have Buddy Murphy knocking on the door of Alistair Black. And he pounds on this door. Knock, 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 knock. Like Walter White. Says he's here to pick a fight with Alistair Black. And he stands there. He waits a minute for Black to come out. But then he's like, that's what I thought. And Murphy walks away. And as Murphy leaves the shot, Black runs out, opens the door in confusion. And I just gotta ask, like, what was Black doing? This dude's been waiting for someone to knock on his door for the last 5 years, it feels like. What was he doing that when someone finally knocked on his door like he's been asking to, that he wasn't ready to answer the call? What, was he taking a dump? Was he jerking off? Was he in a trance? Just trying to sleep while he's dreaming and just saying, "Fight me," over and over again. Pick a fight with me. How the hell has WWE turned Alistair Black into a punchline? Like how did we let this happen? I'm disappointed that this is what Alistair Black is on the main roster. But Buddy Murphy versus Alistair Black, I'm sure will be a fantastic match. But we get into the further details of this. Buddy Murphy versus Akira Tozawa is what follows this. I expected this to be a squash, but it was really good stuff. Back and forth, Akira Tozawa got a lot of good stuff in. The big senton off the top rope to a hung Buddy Murphy in the middle rope. Just back and forth throughout, but Murphy does end up getting the win with the Murphy's Law. Murphy goes back to Alistair Black's door, and before he can even knock on the door, Murphy says, "Hey, Alistair," and Black comes out. Opens the door right away. He's ready this time. No more games. He realized that someone was ready to fight, and he needed to take this seriously. Maybe that's what happened, is maybe Alistair just gave up. Like, he was like, no one's ever going to knock on my door. I guess I'm just stuck here forever. Because it's impossible for him to leave that room without someone knocking. He's been stuck there for months. But Black comes out. They stare at each other. No words are said, and then it fades away. Untimely commercial break number 5. And I don't even know if it led to a commercial break, but either way, it fades away. And there was no, I'll see you next week. Or, no, I challenge you to a match next week. It was just, fight me intensifies. as I stare into your soul. Eric Rowan is still at it with this thing that he has in this cage. He says it's gotten bigger since last week. And what it is, I'm going to guess it's a flower. Environmentalist Eric Rowan, with the Daniel Bryan stuff, he hasn't left his roots of the environmentalist. He is growing a flower. He put a seed in a potted plant. He's been watering it. For whatever reason, he's keeping it in a cage. That's probably not good. I know flowers need sun and to be able to grow. But, nobody ever accused Rowan of being the smartest man. But, yeah, that's my guess. It's flower. But, either way. Rowan versus Job Guy. Cage still in hand. With whatever the hell is in it. The Singh brothers run out, the still 24/7 champion, whoever Singh brother it is, running away from R-Truth. R-Truth sees Rowan and he decides better to just run away. But Rowan lays the Singh brothers out again. He throws the jobber guy on top of them and then gets the jobber guy in the ring and wins. Just the 24/7 stuff is useless at this point. Like, they have gotten so uncreative with that, it's not even funny. And, yeah, another job win for Rowan, so whoop-de-doo. We had Drew McIntyre versus Kevin Owens. And we have Samoa Joe right away pointing out on commentary why it makes no sense to have this match in the first place, because they're teaming together on Sunday. But nonetheless, this was a really fun match, back and forth, big moves all over. Owens hit a stunner, but Drew got his foot on the ropes. McIntyre hit a claymore, I think, but Owens got his foot on the ropes. Just a lot of good stuff back and forth. But then Owens hits a second stunner, and he's trying to crawl into the cover, but Triple H's music hits. And instead of rolling to the cover, Owens rolls more towards Triple H. And then as Triple H is standing at the top of the stage, with this match ongoing, it cuts to commercial. What? And then it comes back. It comes back from commercial, and get this. Drew McIntyre has vanished. He's not even there anymore. It's just Triple H is in the ring with Kevin Owens. So, we talk about the non-finishes before, like the DQ finish with Rollins and Andrade, and the finish in the main event with the Invasion. That was a DQ. But in this case, there wasn't a finish at all. There wasn't a DQ. There wasn't a stoppage. It was just Triple H came out, we cut to commercial, and then we came back, and there wasn't a match anymore. In the middle of a very good match, I may add. You couldn't have done this after the match was over? You couldn't have done something? There's no explanation for why McIntyre just left? Like, did he just get up and see Triple H was there and he was like, I see you guys need to have a moment. I'll go. Don't mind me. Don't mind me. What the hell? Like, what sense did this make? Either way, Triple H says right away that he is here for the same reason that he was for Seth Rollins last week. And he does exactly what he did with Seth Rollins last week. He goes over Owens' whole career from his days in NXT, how he stabbed his best friend Sami Zayn in the back to become NXT champion, to the first night on the main roster, confronting John Cena, putting him out. And the big thing that Triple H says about Owens is that he was taken away from NXT. And the people who took him didn't even want him. Points out how he's been fired multiple times, that these people don't even want you. And so, there's some NXT guys on the outside of the ring that Triple H promises Owens is just there to ensure that we can have this conversation. But then out come the Undisputed Era and they just jump Owens anyway. As the rest of the guys, the NXT guys, get jumped by other Raw guys. And I feel the same way that I did with the Seth promo last week, is why do the attack? Why have Undisputed Era attack him there when you could have left the intrigue there of will Kevin Owens join NXT? Leave that plate spinning so that, you know, it's in our minds. Could it happen? So now the question I have with this though is Triple H calling Undisputed Era to do this, or are they just deciding to do this on their own? Because that could be an interesting character development. And this is a funny last thing to talk about, but Asuka beats Natalya one-on-one match. For whatever reason, Natalya hasn't been seen since she pinned Asuka. Natalya was on the roll of her life with the wins over Lacey Evans and then beating Asuka in a tag match. She still hasn't gotten a tag team title match, and now she lost to Asuka one-on-one. I don't know what's up with that, what they're doing with Natalya at this point. If something happened that must have ruined whatever plans they had, but yeah, this is a funny last thing to talk about. But that was Raw. Overall, you know, like I said in the main event, it really stood through to the whole show that it was very cookie cutter of a Survivor Series go home of what you would expect. Not that that's terrible, but it's also predictable television that I'm not really invested in. There was some good stuff. There was a lot of good in-ring action. Like the Tozawa and Murphy match was really good. The Rollins and Andrade match was really good, but then it had a shit finish. The Drew McIntyre and Kevin Owens match was really good, but then it didn't have a finish. So there was at least some good wrestling to watch on the show. Just some non-finishes that, you know, sort of hampered it down. But overall, not a bad episode of Raw. For a go-home show, I would say it was average at best. But, you know, that not the worst. They've definitely done worse. But, yeah, we'll be back here for AEW on Wednesday. I'm sure we'll have Survivor Series predictions at some point if they actually ever, you know, put the Survivor Series card together. Like, right now, all of NXT's Survivor Series participants are TBD. I don't know how I'm supposed to predict the match when I don't know who's going to be in it. But we'll be back for that. We'll have Survivor Series review on Sunday. We'll do all that stuff. And just keep on keeping on here on the channel. Make sure you're subscribed to not miss any of that stuff. Leave a like, comment what you thought of the show. Tell me how much you disagree with me. Whatever you want to do. All is well. Thank you for watching. And have a good day.